Well, happy Friday, everybody, and welcome back to the OneSoccer Roundtable. It is our favorite show of the week because we get to interact and hear directly from you, our viewers. So make sure you are getting your questions in the comments. I'm already seeing 3 or 4 already, which means we're off to a really, really good start. Love the engagement. We'll try and get through as many of those as possible, especially because we only have 3 main stories we want to talk about. The rest of this roundtable will be driven by you, our viewers. I am, of course, Adam Jenkins, joined by my friends Charlie O'Connor-Clark, Gareth Wheeler, and Oliver Platt on the screen in front of us today. Gentlemen, happy Friday. Hoping you're looking forward to the weekend and the Super Bowl. Maybe we'll get some predictions on the other kind of football before we get going.
Not allowed to say Super B.
Not allowed to say Super Bowl. We're going to get demonetized or something. I should have been warned about this.
The big game.
They're very strict about that. The big game. That's
Long
right.
ahead of time. Let's start with Jozy Altidore, who we've been talking probably about 18 months on. Will he stay? Won't he stay? How will he be bought out if he's bought out, or will the buyout be used? We know that he's not going to be back in 2022, announcing today on his Instagram a heartfelt thank you message to the city of Toronto and Toronto FC, of course, for all the things he was able to accomplish personally and all the things he was able to do for the city of Toronto. And of course, Christian Jack, as he always does. Would usually say put pen to paper on a really nice piece, but he put fingers to keyboard and came up with a really nice piece on onesoccer.ca. So check that out if you haven't already. Something of a love letter to Jozy. Let's ask the panel this to start. What do you think his legacy will be with Toronto as he's departed now from the Reds? Gareth?
First off, in the words of the great Krusty the Clown, talk to the audience. Oh, this part is always death. That's kind of how I'm feeling right now. I don't know where to start on Jozy Altidore. I'm not sure the SAG is done. Are you? Like, it's fine if Altidore comes on and says goodbye to the fans in the city of Toronto. Has there been a formal buyout? Has there been an announcement by the club as of yet? Like, it was last week where a basketball reporter was breaking the news that he was going to sign with the New England Revolution. Has that happened yet? So, although, you know, it's going to be, Altidore's not coming back to Toronto FC. We understand that. But I don't know, is this gamesmanship here? Is this trying to push something through that seems to be dragging out? Because this is a delicate and difficult negotiation to make. You know, Altidore knows that his future is not with Toronto FC anymore. He wants to move on, but does TFC want to fully pay him out and buy him out? So I think that this would have been announced if it was actually done. I know that some people with Toronto FC are out of country. They're away at present time. Would they be working if they're taking a few days off and step away to make this announcement made? I'm not so sure. So it's just been a drawn out process. And the story just continues to be written, although the story on the field is seemingly over.
So that's all fair and well, and I don't disagree with you at all, Wheels. But the question was, what is his legacy with Toronto FC?
An incredible first 3 years. Him and Sebastian Giovinco kind of redefined what it meant to play for Toronto FC, along with the likes of Michael Bradley and some others. But those two in attack were absolutely lethal. And he's an exceptionally popular player in the city. But I just feel like it's complicated. And you can't skim over that. The last 2-3 seasons, the player just hasn't been able to stay on the field. A player that reached his prime at Toronto FC and still in an age that was in his prime, but was unable to continue to play at that level. That's part of the equation. The rifts with the front office, whether the player dealt with it incorrectly or the club dealt with it incorrectly. Like, these are all part of the story. So I don't think it's anything close to straightforward, and neither is his exit. That's what I'm trying to articulate here. Nothing's been easy. Nothing has been easy, and nothing continues to be easy.
No, I definitely think that's a totally valid part because you want to remember the good times, and as time progresses and after he departs, and assuming it's not a Giovinco, will he come back in 3 or 4 or 5 years kind of saga, the memories, the good memories will sort of return to the surface more than the departure.
Lastly, I want these guys to chime in, but like, this is a player, he's still 31, 32 years of age. You know, he's still at a good age. He still should be producing at the highest of levels. Like, one, there's some risk with Toronto FC buying him out, landing with another MLS team. If he goes on, recaptures his form, does he get back into the U.S. men's national team side if he impresses? Potentially, and he has the ability to do that. But the thing is, TFC has found themselves in a position where they're essentially going to pay a player to go away. And these negotiations were going on last season, so it continues to draw out. And I'm not sure how much further it will draw out, because TFC essentially can keep hold of Altidore until June or July when Insigne comes into the team. So they could sit on that asset if they wanted to play hardball. So like I said, just nothing's easy about this situation.
Certainly not. Charlie, are you going to choose to remember the tumultuous exit? Are you thinking more of Jozy at his prime? Because they're not unrelated, but what do you think his legacy will be ultimately?
They're not, and it has been kind of an awkward, drawn-out breakup. I think, as Gareth has kind of alluded to, it's been a complicated situation. But I really think that at the end of the day, when you look back at what Jozy Altidore accomplished with TFC, I think we are all operating under the assumption that he has played his last game for this club, at least for a while. You can't rule out anything, but if we are operating under that assumption, then he is one of the most impactful players in club history, and he's been key to almost every big moment that this club has had, right, from MLS Cup to winning their first conference final in Montreal, and going to the CONCACAF Champions League final. All of those things, he's been right there, and I think just because it's kind of sputtered a little in the last year or so. I mean, things have been really complicated everywhere for that club in the last 2 years, right? And obviously Jozy's been a big part of it. He hasn't really been as healthy as you would have wanted him to be, so he kind of fell out of favor, fell off the table a little bit. But I think at the end of the day, you can't really deny him the flowers that he's owed for what he has, contributed to that club and how popular he was in the city and all of the moments that he provided, right?
Ollie, how big is your bouquet for Jozy Altidore?
It is very big. I don't think his status as a club legend is in any way in question or in doubt. I think beyond just being one of the best players in MLS for much of his time at TFC, he's also someone who, as Charlie mentions, has produced so many big moments or been right at the center of so many big moments. And also as a personality, he's been beloved in this city, right? Like he was so popular, not just for who he was as a player, but as a person as well. And that he had an ability to show his personality in a way that, really endeared him to people in a big way. So that side of it for me, even with what's happened over the past 2 or 3 years, I don't think there's any question about how Jozy Altidore will be remembered as a TFC player. That's not in doubt for me. But I think Wheels is right that it does seem like a strange situation and a weird way for this to happen, because you would think that, both the player and the club would want to make a big thing of this, right? If Jozy's leaving TFC, you want to say thank you, you want to show the gratitude and say farewell in the right way. And instead, what we've got is silence from the club, because I don't think, as Will says, anything is actually done yet. And like a quick Instagram post from Jozy saying thanks to the fans in the city. Like it doesn't feel like the right way for this to come to an end. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but I think Wills is right that there is still, things to watch for and a bit more than meets the eye happening right now.
Right or wrong, to me, when I saw the Instagram post before anything from the club, it was like, this is peak on-brand Jozy Altidore. This is his story, his moment, his decision. I'm going, even if you aren't ready for me. And that's one of the things I'm going to think back about Jozy. And look, the Leafs in this market, before the Raptors' big rise and then the Blue Jays sort of in dormancy after the World Series and before the resurgence in the Josh Donaldson, Jose Bautista bat flip era, Toronto was screaming out for personality, as you guys have rightfully used that word, and not just someone who performs on the pitch, but is fun to interact with, someone the supporters really would like to take out for a beer and just hang out with, instead of just the cantankerous business only type of personality. So to be as good as Jozy was, as personable as he seemed to be, and truly own his own brand and personality, I think that's a big piece of why he was as revered as he was in this city. Canada, their men's national team is going to be one of the next topics we get to. I, of course, have a question for you prepared on my iPad, but we do have some questions from the chat. We'll fire through a couple of them. First from Jeff Salisbury, who asks, how much do you think Ike Ugbo might feature for the men's national team in the next window now that he's made a move to Troyes for hopefully more consistent playing time, Gareth?
I think it'll be about the same. When you have Jonathan David and Kyle Aaron who aren't going anywhere, I mean, those are your first choice players up top. I don't think that this move really comes into play. It's probably good for his career right now. I was told when he made the move to Belgium, it was with the promise that he was going to be the starting number 9. They hadn't sold off their other starting number 9. So I don't know if that was a broken promise or miscommunication, or we're dealing in COVID times where some deals just take longer to be made. But certainly playing more will help. I rate the player. I think he's very good. But whether it's he or Cavallini or whoever else, you're going to play behind David and Larin and potentially Davies when he's pushed up top as well. That's just the reality of the depth that, up top for Canada. So I think he's going to be a useful player. He's going to absolutely have a role to play, but I think he knows where he is in the pecking order.
Ollie?
Yeah, I think I could see him starting a game in March, though, right? Like in a 3-game window, maybe you're potentially looking at a situation where if everything's tied up as we hope it will be, that who's going to actually travel to Panama, right? Are Davies and David and those guys going to go for that game? I'm not sure. So there could be an opportunity for him to get a start. It sounded like he picked up a bit of a knock before the El Salvador game, which maybe limited his involvement in that game, and he could have played more of a part. So like Will says, he's always going to be in a really difficult fight when you've got Larin and David and Davies as competition. But there's definitely a role for a player who I think is probably kind of the purest like penalty area player, someone who can push defenses back and stretch teams a bit more by playing very high. So he'll have a role for sure, but it's going to be tough to compete for a starting spot, at least in this year leading up to the World Cup, with those players in front of him.
Charlie, I think about how Ollie's alluded to and Wheels to the pecking order, the who's in front of him. So aside from suspension, aside from knocks that we'll knock on wood, hope don't come forward for players in front of him, how much does he have control over his own situation? And he can be fit, he can be contributing on club level, but is there much he can do, Ike Ugbo, to sort of show John Herdman he deserves more minutes over Larin and David?
That's the thing, isn't it? I don't know if there is a whole lot that he personally can do. I mean, you're not likely to outplay Larin or David on club form and play your way into play your way up the pecking order there. But I think that he probably would have known when he committed to this group, which wasn't even that long ago. He would know kind of where he stands on that depth chart, and I'm sure John Herdman has explained to him that as Gareth and Ollie alluded to, he will get those opportunities. There will be a role for him, but obviously it is by far the deepest part of the field for Canada is in that attack. So I think he understands that, and I know that the more that he plays at club level, the more that he'll pick up that form, and eventually maybe he does move on to even a higher level or something like that, and then he does start to maybe push into the picture a little bit more, maybe establish himself more as that kind of number 3 striker behind Larin and David. But I think it is unfortunate for him that he did have that injury for the El Salvador game, because I think that could have been a good game for him to contribute in, especially with, as Ollie referenced, the way that he's kind of that pure in the box striker who can stretch a team out and maybe get something going in transition. That could have been a good game for him. But yeah, I think in terms of this next window coming up, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets one of the starts, but I think it'll be a similar sort of role for him. Again, there's a Nations League coming up in the summer. I think he has a bit more of a role there, but eventually I still don't really think that it's very likely for him to push his way up into that kind of number 1 starting kind of role. And I think he knows that, and he's okay with it.
Well, I'll tell you how he could, though, Charlie. By scoring goals. Like Kyle Larin wasn't in the first choice plans, 2 years ago?
That's true.
He's caught fire. He was a player that, I think a lot of coaches, whether club or country, didn't know if they could trust him. So absolutely there's room here for growth. He just has to go out and do it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I will say, Jeff, first of all, thank you for the question. Thank you for the question, Jeff. But the reason this was picked first is because I was bribed. And if you know me, I love my free stuff. Jeff's saying, I'll send each of you a jar of Saskatoon berry jelly if you answer one of my questions. So, Jeff, I don't know exactly what that means. All I know is that I want it. So thank you, and I look forward to the berry jelly.
Free stuff.
Next question, also on the CanMT front, from Philip Zerkwitz, and I know this is going to be one that sets off the debates. I love these kinds of questions. And Philip says, look, Canada's 21 in the ELO ratings and 33rd in FIFA's. Which rating is more accurate? There's two trains of thought here. The FIFA rankings are there to reward sustained, continued success. And I'm going to ask Gareth this question first because I know how much he loves FIFA rankings. Gareth, I'm coming to you first.
Wheels down.
These aren't power rankings, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't where Canada should be in the world by a group of journalists at the moment. It is their FIFA ranking versus their ELO rating. Gareth, take it away, my friend.
Wheels down, Ollie. All yours.
First time he's ever deflected. Okay, Ollie.
I don't know. Like, I haven't even looked at these ELO ratings, to be honest, to see who they're... I think the idea behind the ELO rating is that it's more like based on the last couple of years as opposed to the last 5 years or whatever. So theoretically, that might be a bit more reflexive of what the team is right now. To be honest, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm just trying to kill time here.
Okay, Charlie, so let me rephrase this because I'm not sure if you're sort of joking and smiling and shaking your head. So you could either agree with them fully, but I want to prod a bit more of an answer here. It's a ridiculous question because ratings, except for the wheels up, wheels down power rankings, are usually trivial. But in this case, it determines where Canada's seated in the World Cup. After all the legwork they put in, if they go on undefeated, they're still going to be buried behind the US and Mexico, who are nowhere near the level of current form that the Canadians are. So it's not completely inconsequential. Where do you weigh in on the whole ratings, rankings fiasco there is right now?
Fiasco is a funny way of looking at it, but... Yeah, obviously FIFA rankings are, fairly complex, and there's a lot of drawbacks to them. But I mean, yeah, when Canada goes into this World Cup, say they're ranked 30th or something like that in the draw, are they better than several of the teams ahead of them? Yes, probably. But they're a reflection of kind of your form and the games you play over a decade or so. And we can't forget how many games Canada has played that counted for 0 FIFA ranking points, just by virtue of being in CONCACAF and playing against clubs that aren't FIFA members.
FIFA rated,
right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I mean, you can control what you can control. You look at the rankings now, you think if you win a few games, you can get into pot 3, hopefully. But other than that, they're certainly not a reflection of which teams are genuinely better or worse than all of the others. They're a little bit of information on maybe their form over a decade, but not necessarily.
I prefer the J-Lo ratings. That is the system.
Two final pickups on this one. I'm still amazed how much we've gone from this is incredible, all-time high, to a horde of Canadian supporters seeing this is BS, they should be way higher than they are. And I will say too, if you think that a soft drink company who sponsors these ratings don't want their rankings to mean something, I think you're a little bit silly considering how much money that certain corporation would pay. This one from Micah Collins on Instagram. Do you think Canada could make the knockout stages of the 2022 World Cup? This is one Gareth will be much more inclined to answer.
No, we don't even know what the teams are playing yet. Like, I did you not see my rant from, what was it, yesterday, Ollie? This is all far too premature. We don't even know what the entire field's going to look like, who's qualifying from Africa, what other European teams are going to make it in, what teams from South America are going to make it in. Let's just relax. Just enjoy these next few games.
Possible.
See this Canada team get over the line for the first time since the 1986 World Cup, and then we can go on. The way that this team is playing, I like them against a lot of teams right now, based upon their depth, their versatility, all these things that we've been praising this group for and about over the last year. But at the same time, this will be a completely new experience for them playing at a World Cup, something that none of these players have ever done before. New for the head coach, new for the coaching staff, new for everyone involved. So I think it's just going to be step by step. Let's see where the team's at come the fall. Plenty can change, by the way, in that period of time. And then we can all kind of wax poetic about what we think might happen in Qatar.
It's also a World Cup year, Ollie, but the World Cup is still in November. So there's a lot of time between how red hot they are right now and when the tournament will be, and yes, Gareth, who they'll be playing. But on a big picture, remove yourself, Oliver Platt. It certainly matters, Gareth. 100% it does. Ollie, are they going to make the knockout stages? Answer the question.
We're 19 minutes into this Q&A, and Gareth Wheeler is yet to offer a single A.
Krusty the Clown talking with the audience. Oh man, this is always
Jozy situation.
Living up to its billing.
Jozy's situation, too early to say. World Cup depends on the draw. Doesn't want to answer about the rankings to recap so far. I think obviously it does depend on the draw, but theoretically, can they qualify for the knockout stage? Yes. I think there is more than one draw that could happen. There is definitely more than one, potential draw that would see Canada have a really good chance of being in the top two. Now, of course, it's possible they draw Brazil and Denmark, and then it's going to be really tough, and they probably won't be able to finish above two teams of that quality. But there are, I think, more avenues or more potential draws where they would have a chance. They would have a good chance. So I think, yes, they're absolutely a legitimate shot to make the knockout stage. You
would have said that, essentially anyone has a chance. Who in 20...
don't give me that anyone has a chance.
Anyone has a chance.
Adam Jenkins, shut your mouth here for a second. In 2014, Costa Rica was drawn in a group with England, Italy, and Uruguay. Guess who won that group, Adam? Guess who won that group?
So
there you go. So theoretically, that can happen. So
yes.
Again,
they can.
Gareth, yes. And second, Gareth, you can't tell me to shut my mouth and then ask me a question. It cancels itself out. Charlie O'Connor Clark.
You couldn't answer. So.
Man of the people, Charlie O'Connor Clark. Are you siding more with Wheels or are you siding more with Ollie?
I mean, everybody is right that we don't know what the form will be like in November. We don't know who's going to be in the group. But yeah, of course it's possible for Canada to do that. If you get the right kind of draw, then yes. But you don't go into the World Cup expecting it if you're Canada, right? You go in hoping to score your first goal at a World Cup, for instance, or things like that, right?
I don't know.
These aren't things that we hang our hats on. It would be really, really cool, and it's fun to think about that kind of possibility. And I'm sure once the draw comes out, we can maybe talk more seriously about this. But sure, it's possible. It's not something that I would bank on just yet, but you never know. It's a World Cup. You've played 3 games.
Ollie, I know you want the final word here.
I actually think that they will expect it. Obviously, depending on the draw, if they get a really difficult one, then that changes things. But I think this team will expect to make the knockout stage, because to put it on more solid a basis than, it's possible for everyone. If you look at Costa Rica, USA, Mexico, their records at the World Cup, they've made the knockout stage quite a lot, those teams, through the past few tournaments. And there's no reason to believe Canada is inferior right now to any one of the other teams in CONCACAF that have fared quite well in previous editions of the World Cup.
Good answer.
So that's
Good answer.
My basis for thinking so.
And that's the one we're going to leave it on. More questions from the chat. I want to go to one from Instagram next, and I'm going to assign this specifically to Charlie O'Connor Clark. This is from Shorty 2379. My kind of person, Shorty, with you, Team 5-6. Do you think Tristan Borges still has what it takes to play for the Canadian men's national team? Charlie?
Do I think Tristan Borges has what it takes? Maybe. We definitely didn't see the best of him in the CPL season in 2021. I think even he would agree to that. But we've seen the qualities that he does have. We saw those in 2019 with Forge FC and how good he can be. And we know that he's been on the radar, on John Herdman's radar, and he's been in camps a couple times. So it would take another kind of big and successful, impressive season with Forge to get back into that conversation, and probably not likely to be called up for things of the caliber of World Cups or being in a World Cup squad, but you can see him getting more involved with various camps or Nations Leagues or Gold Cups or things like that. Sure.
All right. Let's go. This is an interesting one. Hey guys, Antonio from Mexico. Hola. Is this the best Canadian soccer team in history, Ollie?
Yes. Next question.
All right, there you go. Anyone want to disagree?
I think obviously, if you want to bring the women into it and compare those two, then of course, they're Olympic gold medalists. They've been World Cups and deep in Olympics on a regular basis. But if we're talking purely just a men's program, of course.
Yeah, and the way they play, full credit to the team that qualified in '86. There were some good teams in the early '80s. Some very good players in the history of Canadian soccer. They just played in a completely different way, right? It'd be robust and physical and much more traditional in its sense. These are the players playing now are modern footballers that the talent, the ability. They have a good mix of everything. So I think they're the most complete team, yes, that we've ever seen wear the Maple Leaf.
Okay. More from Instagram. This from Robert S. And on the topic of CPL players potentially cracking the men's national team fold, should Marco Bustos get a Canadian call-up ahead of Liam Miller? Miller, in Robert's opinion, did not look good in the last game. Ollie, what do you think?
I think you have to be realistic and say that, yeah, Miller has maybe not set the world alight in his last few appearances for Canada, but he is also playing for a team that's quite regularly in the Champions League in Europe, in Basel, the top team in Switzerland. So as much as we're all huge fans of the CPL, there is a gulf there in the quality of the teams they play for. Now, I think with Bustos and with Borges, is it likely in the next year or so that they're going to break back into that men's national team picture? No, I don't think anyone can really say that. Do I think both players have the ability at some point in the future to work their way back in if all things go really well for them and their progress, trends upwards? Then yeah, I think that the ability is there, but they are going to probably need to go to a higher level. They're going to need to succeed at that higher level, and those are difficult things to do. So there's no guarantees for either of them, but they're both talented players.
Yeah, I like both players. I don't think there's a chance. It's a position that's absolutely loaded with players, with good Canadian players playing those attacking wide positions who are either playing at a higher level or at a better age. Like, there's some young players coming through all three Canadian MLS clubs that look to be set and ready to make some noise and take that next step as well. It's going to be extremely difficult. Borges a little bit younger. Perhaps he has a little bit more of a chance, but I mean, if you're going down the depth chart of Canadian players, like, these players would probably be 50, 60, 70, pushing 80 in terms of like the depth for Canadian players, which speaks to the strength of Canadian players, right? And with other players, dual nationals potentially coming into the fold, I just don't see it. Hopefully I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong on that.
This is the same Gareth Wheeler who 10 minutes ago shouted, "Anything is possible." Well,
that was you, Skilo rating. By the way, my Skilo rating joke did not get enough love. So, because I don't think you don't know who Skilo is, but that's okay. Look it up.
I'll be honest, I don't, and I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
I wish it was a little bit taller.
Okay, see, I can appreciate.
What's that?
So Dave in the chat is going to help us segue into the question I want to pose to the group next. He asks, how would Canada rate against South American teams? And on a larger topic, so thank you, Dave, for the question, I want to ask, we have seen a lot of Canada in CONCACAF lately. Nations League, Gold Cup, World Cup qualifying, Nations League's coming up again. You would assume at some point John Herdman's going to try and schedule some friendlies outside of the Confederation, especially in a lead-up to Qatar scenario. So, gentlemen, I'd like to ask you who you would like to see Canada play some friendlies with, and to answer Dave's question, I'd like one of you to tell me which South American team Canada would line up well against. Who wants this one first? You're all looking very pensive. Charlie, the least pensive, I will assign it to you first.
The least pensive. Okay. So yeah, there's two things here then. So Canada against the South American teams. It's hard to say. I mean, some of these CONCACAF opponents that Canada play do more regularly play South American teams in friendlies. I think El Salvador played Chile and maybe Ecuador fairly recently, and I believe they lost those games. But these other CONCACAF teams have a little bit more experience playing against them, so we've got some comparison. Obviously, they're friendly, so the lineups and the squad depth isn't the same, but there is generally a bit of a step down to CONCACAF from the top. You know, the Chiles, the Argentinas, Brazils, those sorts of teams in South America. Obviously, Canada are not likely to stack up very well to an Argentina or a Brazil at the moment, but you know, you would think that they could be competitive against maybe some of the other teams in that CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying. Still, I believe there's a lot of quality in a lot of those teams. A lot of those players play at very high levels, like Chile and Peru and Uruguay. Those are all good teams with more established programs. But I don't know. In terms of which teams I want Canada to play friendlies against, the answer is Germany, right? Like you want to see Alphonso Davies play his teammates.
That'll be fun.
I do like that. That's a little inside the box thinking. I like it. Okay, I'll add to Charlie's thoughts on how Canada would fare in South America and who you would like to see them play friendly against.
Well, pre-World Cup friendlies are one of my favorite parts of any World Cup cycle because there's this thing, and to answer the question, I'm not going to pick teams because we need to see the draw. Because if you follow international football, you will notice that there's an extremely interesting thing I think that teams do, where they wait for the draw and then they get their atlas out and then they pick a bordering country to arrange a friendly against before the tournament, which has led to some very strange situations like England's, Tunisia, and Belgium when they were drawn with Panama at the 2018 World Cup. All three of them played Costa Rica in a pre-tournament friendly as preparation for Panama. I don't know if there's actually any basis in logic to this. I don't think teams, just because they have borders with each other, necessarily play the same style of football, but it's a tradition I love. So you have to wait for the draw. Those will be my picks for Canada's friendlies, is to see who they draw, get the map out, and pick who's next door.
Gareth, okay, same question to you. Who do you want to see them play? Because Ollie dodged that one. Well, he just wanted to point at an atlas.
Growing up in Toronto, we've been subject, not even subject, I actually like it. I think it's charming, to all the different people of heritage from other countries go on and celebrate and have a big party when their teams do well. I want that question to be asked to some of these other, to these other, like Italian Canadians, Portuguese Canadians. Where do your loyalties stand? Let's draw that line in the stand. Who are you supporting? Are you supporting Canada or the place where your uncle's aunt's brother's sister came from? I want to know. I would love to see how that plays out. So let's go with Portugal, Italy first, and England third.
Okay, so a couple of questions just flew by. Comments just flew by. One about other hot nations and Canada facing off against that, around being a shout there as well. But I have some objections to the last comment that was made. Gareth is going to say Wales, of course. Hey, I'm going to say Wales, of course, especially in your ELO rankings. Canada and Wales, neighbors in the ELO rankings.
I don't want to see that.
They need to test themselves before a World Cup. So
Ollie, thank you for joining us today. That'll be all from you.
You don't think that Canada is a good enough test for Wales? Wow, unbelievable. Slander, Ollie.
Can't handle it. Cannot handle it. All right, guys, that is going to be all we have today. Jeff is going to have the final word from the comment section directly at Wheels. The Saskatoon berry jelly, you put it on toast, just like any jam or jelly. I think we overthought that one. So, Jeff, thank you.
Put two things on toast. One is hummus, two is cheese. Come at me.
What hummus in the world?
We need another half hour for that.
Yeah, we don't have... I'm going to need a therapy session, I think, to break that one down. So, Jeff, the Saskatoon berry jelly can get sent to OneSoccer HQ, and maybe we'll have it on the round table one day. But thank you genuinely to everyone in the comments. We love these Friday roundtables. Even Krusty the Clown over there likes answering your questions as well. It's good for the engagement. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Ollie. Thank you, Gareth and Armin and producer Lucas behind the scenes. We appreciate it. Back next Friday for another roundtable, and back on Monday with more OneSoccer today, and we'll be talking a little CF Montreal as our MLS breakdowns continue on OneSoccer. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl.
Go Rams!